Hello and welcome to Nikon Report, your weekly roundup of all the latest Nikon news and all other photographic announcements that we found interesting. There's not much other announcements that we're going to talk about, just Nikon today.
Yes.
There's a little camera that was released last week, little mirrorless camera called the Z9.
Yes, just a small, tiny, itty-bitty camera. There has been a lot of Z9 coverage out on the World Wide Web, so we're not going to talk about all of it because there's so many specs and feedback and initial responses and pretty much anything you want to know about it, it's already out there. But we will give you some pointers as to where to look if you want the real nitty-gritty.
Absolutely. So first one we recommend is Essential Watch. It's Ricci 3 months with Z9, the most detailed description of Z9 and its functionality ever. So do recommend you this one. He also recently published a video on Z9 buffer test, and we've been getting lots of questions about this. So he is using lots of different memory cards as well as just shooting at 20 frames per second and testing how big is the buffer of the camera. So do have a look at that.
We also have DP Review as an essential read, I would say. They've taken a detailed look and they've put an awful lot of specs and kind of initial response to the camera up there. So that's well worth a look at.
Absolutely. One thing I want to ask you. So we had the camera over this weekend. So what's your impression? So obviously we had a quick play with it before the release, but now we had a bit more time with it.
Yes.
What's the new impressions that you have about the camera?
This is a formidable camera. I wasn't expecting to be so taken aback by the speed of it, let's say. Yeah. As I think you mentioned briefly yesterday, you said, this is too easy. Those are your exact words.
It's almost like using a cheat code in a video game.
Yeah, it's very, very fast. The accuracy of the autofocus is like nothing we've seen in any camera, DSLR or Z. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, I think this camera just will revolutionize the way we use the camera, because technically yesterday, I thought, okay, why don't I just take the camera to autofocus continuous, switch on all the possible face recognitions, so the birds and, the animals and the people, of the world. And then you just press iPhone button, pressed all the time. And then you just press shutter release button whenever you take the shot. So you can literally keep holding it all the time and it will track the subject. And because it's so fast and so real time, that this is the way you do it. There's no point of focusing, recomposing. There's no point of doing anything like this.
Yeah, which is very, very encouraging. We have seen a few people say, oh, with the Z9 now, with all these amazing autofocus modes, will we see a trickle down to other cameras? We don't know, but I'd be very excited if we saw any of those improvements in existing models.
Absolutely. A lot of people compare it with the D3 moment. I think it's a bigger than D3 moment. I think it's nice when a really hyped up release is actually up to the task.
As good as it says on the box.
I think it's even better.
Yeah, now Nikon Rumors actually have reported that according to several retailers around the globe, they've all said the same thing. This release has been bigger and the highest amount of pre-orders for the Z9 over any of the other cameras, D700, D800, D850. The D850 for us was, at the time, the biggest new launch that we'd ever experienced, but the Z9 has already topped that. So
it's on another level.
Yeah, so we can confirm that at least from the Greys of Westminster, the building, we have had the highest number of pre-orders of a new camera that we've ever had in history. So that's quite something.
Absolutely. We all will be having a really nice holiday. But it's interesting how it is a flagship camera. It is the most expensive camera in the lineup.
It is, and it's not even as expensive as
the D6. Absolutely. But then it is the best-selling camera.
Yes.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. All right. A lot of people ask the question why the price of Z9 in UK is a lot higher than in United States. So we're going to have a small segment here, which is called What with Con. So in UK, the price is 5299. That includes a 20% VAT, which is value added tax. It's already included in the price. If you remove that tax, the price actually is not 5299, it's something around £4,400. Now, if you go to exchange rate and convert 5499 United States dollars to pounds, it's roughly about £4,030. So I think the question has to be here is why the price in UK is £4,400 and in US is 4,000. Keep in mind that in US, each individual state adds their tax on top. So it's never included in the price. So some places, of course, they don't add any tax in some states, but a lot of states will have the tax on, depending on where you are. It could be 7%, could be 10%. So that will go on top. So when you look at this, yes, price in the UK is a little bit higher. However, the difference is not that big. Now, professional photographers, a lot of them are also VAT registered, so they will be able to take that money back from the government once they file their tax returns. Of course, for some people, it's not that possible, but that's kind of the information that you need to keep an eye on. The same situation in Europe, they also have added tax in the price. So I can understand where confusion is coming from, but hopefully that clears it up.
Yeah, so it means that the camera pricing is a little bit more on par than we perhaps originally perceived. Other Z9 news, we have some upcoming live events. Here in the UK, we have an event at Grays Westminster on the 9th of November with Rob McNeice from Nikon Pro Services. He will be bringing the Z9. So if you'd like to book yourself in for that, then we will put a link in the description box in the podcast notes. We are also doing a live stream on the 12th of November with a very special Nikon guest who will be answering questions about the Z9, points for whoever guesses who it is. And then there is also a Nikon event with the Z9 with Ricci Scherer from Ricci Talks and from Nikon School. That's on Friday, the 5th of November. And we'll put a link if you'd like to book in for that virtual event. We'll put a link in the description box in the podcast notes.
Fantastic. And then in the United States on November the 5th, there will be an event with Joe McNally at Service Photo. We're going to put an Eventbrite link where you can book yourself in the video below. There's also going to be Z9 discussions with Tom Hogan and Nikon ambassador Michelle Wahlberg at Pulse Photo. There are multiple events scheduled, so if you want to have a look at the schedules, again, look at the link below under the videos. Now, Nikon published an accessory chart for Nikon Z9. Remember they used to do that for every single camera, and now they don't do that anymore.
No, I haven't seen the system chart for quite some time, actually. So that's helpful. It's in Japanese.
But the pictures are there. Okay, the new accessories are DK33 eyepiece, new FTZ Mark II, which will be compatible with all Nikon Z cameras, as well as FTZ will be compatible with Z9. We also have a new battery, MH18D, which I've tested all weekend. I plugged it in the old D6 charger, and while it fits, it doesn't charge it. So that's the number one. Then MH33 charger is a single battery charger. However, you can also charge your battery inside the Z9. And I used my MacBook charger, and that worked pretty well. So it's a USB-C charger effectively. I think MacBook charges about 65 volts. So that's pretty good. We also have EP6A AC adapter. So if you film in a lot and you want your camera to be plugged into the mains, that's the one to use. And that's pretty much it. The rest of the accessories are fully compatible. All the flash guns are compatible. All the 10-pin connector accessories are also compatible.
Yeah, they even have a section for video, including the small rig plate. Do you see that down there?
Oh, where is it? Oh, yeah, you're right.
So they've got video accessories, and then they've also got Atomos and Blackmagic. And then they say, your TV will also work. So
oh, fantastic. So
obviously geared towards video.
Actually, it has a full-fledged HDMI port in the camera, so which is really nice to have because all other Nikon cameras have a mini HDMI port. So this is really good. You can get HDMI to HDMI cables nowadays, which support 8K at 60 frames per second, pretty inexpensively nowadays, which is really nice. We use this with our Ninja 5, which doesn't support 8K, but it does 4K. But it was good for us to connect them so we can actually record what camera is doing, what autofocus system is doing while we're actually taking shots. So we will release that video later on.
Yeah. Other announcements. Nikon actually announced a whole load of new releases, new developments, and everything was overshadowed by the Z9.
That's true.
But the other big one is the 100 to 400 Z lens, f4.5 to 5.6S. Now, that is a lens that a lot of people have been waiting for. It's kind of the Z equivalent of the 80 to 400 for those of you who've used that F-mount equivalent. It will fully work with the TC 1.4 and TC 2.0 times teleconverters for the Z system.
Yay.
It has a multi-focusing system that utilizes 2 stepping motors, enabling fast, precise, and quiet AF operation for both stills and videos. It has optical VR with an effect equivalent to shutter speeds of 5.5 stops faster.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so 5.5 stops VR is what they usually say, or, thereabouts. Oh, the inner balance technology that you talked about, and we couldn't remember the name of it. Apparently, this is a first for Nikon. So what it does is it stops the lens, when you zoom out, it stops the lens from getting very front heavy. So it actually balances out the elements inside the lens so that you don't get that sort of drop when you use the full extension of the zoom.
So it's all feng shui.
Yes, it's all balanced.
Fantastic. Yin and yang are finally in place.
That's right. The MTF charts do look amazing.
They look incredibly good and they beat the F-mount version straight out of the water.
Yeah. And if you'd like to see some sample images, we will put the link in the description box for you so you can have a little look at what it performs like in the field.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to trying it out.
Me
Since, I'm a famous bird photographer nowadays. So,
Only with the Z9.
only with the Z9. I don't use anything else.
Yeah.
Only a pre-production Z9 as well.
That's right. We also had the announcement of a full frame Z24 to 120 f4 S-line lens, which we talked a little bit about in our live stream on Friday, but is essentially a replacement for a longer kit lens if you wanted something a bit longer than your 24-70 f4.
Absolutely. What's good about new lenses as well, that they have quite a good minimum focusing distance. So let's say 100 to 400, I think it's about 75 centimeters at the short end and meter at the longer end. The 24-120 focuses at 35 centimeters, which is really good. So the reproduction ratios is much higher on the Z-mount lenses compared to F-mount lenses as well. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you got all the things thrown in like nanocrystal coats, Arnia coats, all the ED glass, you name it. So there's also something they mentioned in both lenses is kind of dual autofocus motor.
Yeah.
And that's something that we haven't heard before. And apparently what we were told by Nikon reps is that actually that technology is already in the previous lenses. They just never mentioned it.
Yeah, they just wanted to add it to the features. A couple of people have mentioned that there's no VR in this 24-120. To be honest, the IBIS is good enough.
Absolutely. Also keep in mind Z9 has a better implementation of VR on the sensor. So it works better with combined with the lenses compared to previous Z bodies. So a DP review article covers this aspect quite well. So have a look at that. Also, the interesting thing that 24-120 is only 130 grams heavier than 24-70 f4 lens, which is really good because 24-70 f4 is very light. So 24-120 I assume will be as portable as 24-70.
Yeah, exactly. If you follow Ricci on Instagram, Nikon Ricci, I think is his handle. He was shooting with that last week and he showed it in the hand. And the 24-120, it's only slightly bigger than the 24-70. I was keeping an eye on those stories of his. So worth having a look.
So what do you think? If you are a 24-70 f4 owner, would you upgrade to 24-120 f4?
I think if I didn't have anything longer. Okay, so we've got the 24-70 f4 and 2.8, and then we've got the 70-200. I don't have a 70-200 myself. It's a lens that's a little bit too big and a bit much for me. I'm going to go the whole hog and use my 500 PF if I'm going to go telephoto. But if I wanted something that was a bit more travel friendly, 24-120 gives you that edging quality over, for example, the 24-200. It's quite a lot of offerings in that range now.
Absolutely. And some people say, well, why don't they have 24-105, 2.8 and a 4 as well? But then there's so many lenses available now. So I personally think that they need to release lenses in other focal distances, but we'll get back to it a little bit later on when we're going to talk about a Nikon Z lens roadmap.
So another announcement was actually a development announcement of the 400mm f2.8 Z, which is one that a lot of people have been waiting for. This also includes a built-in 1.4 teleconverter. So that kind of adopts the system that we've seen in the F mount. We know from the 180 to 400 that has very smooth interaction between the lens and the converter. So quite exciting.
You flick the switch and it just goes straight in. So really straightforward. My thinking is, so since they're implementing this teleconverter in 400mm, do you reckon we're going to see it in 600 and 800mm focal distance lenses?
I would love it if they did that. I'm wondering when they're actually going to release this lens because there isn't yet a release date for it.
What do you reckon? Looking at 40mm and 28mm lens announcements, they came in pretty quickly.
It was about 3 months, was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess that's okay. They've announced it now in, well, let's call it November, at the end of October. So if we had 2-3 months to it, so we're looking probably February, March?
Yes, realistically. And that's the pattern of things previously. If they made an announcement, for example, D6, D5, D500, all of those development announcements were sort of around this time. And then we actually saw the cameras in January, February. So yeah, hopefully early next year before the end of the financial year.
Absolutely. And then one more feature that they list, because this announcement was quite short, they also say providing superb operability in the design that is ideal also for video recording. So I guess that there's no focus breath in there.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the reason for that. But yeah, we definitely going to keep an eye on that and see what happens. So Nikon also released an updated version of Z lens roadmap. So let's have a look at it and see what we like and what we don't like. Okay, so let's go through that. So the blue ones on that picture are the lenses that have already been released. So let's have a look at the yellow ones.
So the yellow ones, we've got our 85mm S line, which we're assuming is probably going to be either a 1.4 or a 1.2.
Yes, I really hope it's going to be 1.4 because 1.2 tells me it's going to be expensive. Just looking at 50mm focal distance, 51.2 lens.
But if you look at that silhouette picture,
I know it looks more like 1.2, but
does.
photography in me, who doesn't want to spend that much money, I'm happy to spend 1600 on 1.4 version instead.
Fair enough. And then we've got, of our prime FX lenses, we've got the 400 2.8, which is on there as already announced in blue.
So I don't quite get this. We got the blue one, and then we also got a yellow one. So we got two 400 lenses. The one that has been announced, so that's a development of 2.8. Now we also have another 400mm, and that tells me that it's going to be a budget version.
Yeah.
So something like 500 5.6 PF. So we may see something like 400mm 5.6.
Yeah, or a 4 or something. And then we've also got a 600 and an 800 on there. So the 800's new.
Yeah. So, and then again, my guess is that it will have teleconverters. Again, looking at 800mm f-mount lens, it has a built-in teleconverter.
Yeah. And then on the compact prime lenses, we've got a 26mm, which is full frame. Which is an interesting choice because we've got a 28 already.
Yeah, I'm confused about this one because the classic focal distance are 24 and 28.
Yeah.
Now, we already have 28mm 2.8. Okay.
We have two versions of it.
Exactly. So, okay, it's 2.8. So it's designed to be cheap and cheerful. So I assume the 26 will have something aperture of, let's say, 2, maybe 1.8 or 1.4.
Right.
So it will be more on the expensive side of things. But then I'm thinking...
It's still small somehow because it's compact.
Do you think so?
Well, it is because it's in the compact prime lenses.
Oh, you're right. So I'm confused about this release because, yes, I'm not 100% sure. It looks like a pancake.
Yeah.
Why would you have two lenses, full frame lenses,
With
so close to each other? Exactly.
Yeah. It is an odd one. They might change that, I think.
Yeah.
Going forward. The 24mm DX lens is also on there. That's another compact. So that's going to be our compact prime lens for the DX cameras.
So that's equivalent of 36mm or 35 as we call it.
Yeah.
In classic terms.
Now, again, the argument is the 28mm kind of almost covered that for us. The 28mm that they've combined with the ZFC, for example, as a kit lens works quite well. So it's a 42mm equivalent. And then suddenly we've got a 24, which is 36mm equivalent. So again, quite close. So I'm not entirely sure about those two compact lenses that we've got on there.
Yeah, I appreciate that we get some wider prime. So because yes, for some people 42 may be a little bit too tight, so 35 is better. But then I do miss 18mm DX lens. So we definitely need to have this one in place because a lot of people like 28mm focal distance for street photography. So I personally think, okay, 24 is good, add 18mm lens to it as well. And then I'm going to be a happy bunny.
Okay. And then another DX lens we've got is a wide angle 12 to 28mm, which is great, actually. Great news because we haven't had a wide angle DX lens in the range yet.
Exactly. So that's equivalent of 18mm to 42mm focal distance, which is really good.
Wouldn't it be nice if it was 1.8?
Yeah. So that's true. That's true. But what I appreciate is that the DX range is getting some love from Nikon.
Mm-hmm. And then last up, we have the 200 to 600, which we already knew about, but is still waiting for its announcement. So hopefully that will arrive before too long because it will be a very nice complement to the 100 to 400 and the 70 to 200.
Okay, so these are releases that we'll see next year and in 2023. Now, let's talk about things that are still missing from the system.
Mm-hmm. So there's no fisheye.
No fisheye. Okay. This one is not that important to me personally. I think, getting FTZ with something like 16mm or 10.5mm will do the trick.
It will be manual focus though. Not that it matters for fisheye.
Do you need autofocus exactly for fisheye lens? Because
Probably
the depth field is so huge. The perspective control lenses, those are obviously very niche lenses. But there is a demand for that. Again, the solution right now is getting FTZ and using the PCE lenses.
I think that will be the solution for quite a long time as well. The PCE lenses, particularly the 19mm now, is superb. You can't really improve on that in terms of a PC lens. So that with the FTZ makes more sense than making a very, very expensive perspective control lens for a tiny market.
I agree with you because, just looking at the sales, those are not high number sales items. So, okay, we covered 18mm. Now, I personally would like to have 17-35 2.8.
Okay.
I know we have 14-24. We also have 14-30. Those are fantastic lenses. I think 17-35 2.8 lens will appeal more towards street photographers and reporters.
Okay.
Who they basically don't need such a wide angle. And then another thing I miss is 70-200 f4 or maybe a cheaper version 70-300 with variable aperture.
That is what I'm missing, to be honest. The 70-300 f4.5 to 5.6 in the F mount. All the last two versions of that, both VR, have been fantastic. The very last version that they've got out now is amazing. Worked really well on the D850, works brilliantly on any lower resolution camera. So having that in a Z mount equivalent would be fab, because then you've got a small and lightweight 24-70 kit lens and then a light 70-300-ish kit lens.
My speculation is that we will see 70-300 much earlier than expected, I think in next 2 years.
Yay. And then we've talked about our 85, which we don't know which one's which. And last of all, it would be nice to have something prime around the 135 end.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, 135, 1.8 Sigma is really nice, but native Z-mount lenses probably will trump it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the least exciting announcement that Nikon made that day, well, a part of ups, I guess, was FTZ2 adapter, which is basically the same thing as FTZ1, except the tripod foot.
They've removed the tripod foot to make it smaller and lighter and easier to handle when you're using long telephoto lenses, because most of those lenses already have a tripod foot on them. You don't need to, one gets in the way of the other. So
yeah, so we used FTZ1 adapter on Z9 over weekend, and it fits absolutely fine, no problem. But if you need to shoot in portrait mode, that's where the bump kind of interferes where you do with the finger placements, and that's where it's not comfortable. Now, in terms of FTZ1 sales, Nikon said that basically the stock is out now. Once it's sold, they no longer make it. So whoever wants to buy the FTZ1 version, do it now, because slowly it will be replaced by FTZ2 version.
absolutely. Next up on announcements, we had a smartphone application, NX Mobile Air, and computer software, NX Tether. So what are these?
All right, so NX Mobile Air is a smartphone application that uploads images taken with Nikon digital cameras to FTP server without using a computer. So that's in a nutshell what it is. So
That's very cool.
You don't, imagine you're somewhere in a field photographing a Crystal Palace game, you know, and then you need to send the image straight away. Before that, you had to have your LAN cable attached to Z9, plugged into the laptop, and that sends the images off into the air.
Yeah.
Now you can just send it through the app, you set it up, you know, 5G speeds are really good nowadays. So, you know, so you bypass effectively the laptop, which makes it a little bit more mobile as well. And then NX Tether is a computer software that supports tethered shooting with Nikon digital cameras, enabling the adjustment of camera settings on the computer and supporting remote shooting.
It is also finally free. So good news to anyone who has struggled to find free tethering software that really does the job. NX Tether will essentially replace out Camera Control Pro 2.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really, really good. So that one will be available on 4th of November, so in the next couple of days. And the NX Mobile Air will be available on November the 24th. Keep that date in your diary.
Yes. In other news, there is a new vlogging kit on the horizon.
And it's a ZFC Vlogging kit.
Yeah, it looks like they've made some small adjustments to the Z50 vlogger kit, which contained a slightly different tripod and bracket. So for the ZFC, the UK price in the Nikon store is listed at £11.69, so £1,169. Although there isn't a huge amount of information on it, it looks like it comes with a Sennheiser shotgun mic instead of the mini little Rode shotgun mic that they had before.
Then we got MLL7 remote release included. It also comes with a little mini tripod as well, which I guess helps you to stabilize the camera while you're filming with your hands. And also, obviously, you can put it somewhere on the table and film yourself.
Exactly.
Fantastic. And that's it for this week. We're going to talk about more coverage of Nikon products. We're also going to be talking about Adobe Max Capture One Pro releases next week. So stay tuned, and we're going to talk about this next week.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for watching and or listening this week. Please do give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube. Thank you so much to all of you who allowed us to reach 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. That was very much appreciated.
I thought it was ambitious to do it till the end of the month, but we did it, huh?
We did it. And if you are listening on a podcast platform, give us a follow and perhaps even a review. It would be most helpful.
Fantastic. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.